Hey guys, this is Leslie from Atlantis Games and Comics, just here to show you a couple neat little projects we have for you and the kids, just keeping you busy. They're nice and short, no glue or external tools required, and they're extremely cute. So these are the Pokemon Bandai model kits, and they are ranging in various difficulties. Pikachu is probably the easiest to put together. Eevee is the kind of medium, and then Mewtwo is definitely the hardest, but also the most articulated. So the Pikachu is $10.49, Eevee and Mewtwo are both $12.99. These are rated for ages 6+, though I would recommend, at the very least with these two, you do it with excessive adult supervision. With all of these are fairly small parts. This is an example of the Eevee one, all put together. It is fairly articulated and does come with interchangeable faces, so you can set it in a few different poses. And overall, they're just really nice and sturdy. This guy has definitely been sitting on the counter for a hot minute and has been dropped multiple times, but still looks really good. All of his parts are still intact, and he still poses perfectly fine. So none of these require glue, any kind of cutting, so you can just pop open the box and start putting them together. We're going to be putting together the Mewtwo one, so you can kind of get an idea of what you'd be in for with the most difficult of the set. So when you first open the box, this is what you'll be greeted with. A fairly large set of screws. All of the bits are labeled, and you'll also have your instructions. Just because there is no glue or cutting required, you do have to be really careful with pulling these out of the box because they will fall off the sprue if you're not careful. Alright, so here we have all of our parts. This one comes with a clear acrylic stand. Fairly self-explanatory. It is the only one that does not stand well on its own without any kind of stand or support. And you also do have a set of decals. These are for the eyes and as well for the tail and belly. So each step is fairly detailed and will tell you exactly which section you're going to want to look at. So starting with number 1, it's going to ask you to find sprue A2, which is going to be the head. So we're going to pull the head off. Nice and easy, just a little twist and they pop right off. Alright, and then they just snap right together, just like that. I'm going to take this opportunity to put the decals on his eyes. Be very careful about pressing these down. They tend not to want to stick very well at first, but with a little bit of pressure and heat, they'll stay. They also sit right into these grooves, so they're very easy to just slide on. The next step, it's going to want me to get A1 and B2. Here is my A1, number 6. I'm just gonna gently pull this off, and I'll find B2, number 12, which is B2, number 12, this one right here. So this is part of the inner mechanism that allows his arm to articulate as you move his tail. I'm going to go ahead and flip this over and set this guy in place. Next is going to be B2 number 11. And again, none of these require a lot of pressure. All of them are fairly fragile, so you're going to want to be very careful popping them off the sprue. And it's going to sit right there. So next we're looking for B2 number 10, which is B2, number 10, this one right here. So this one's a little tricky. There's a small little piece right in here. So this socket, you're going to want to line up with this little peg right down in here, so that when you move the tail, his arm articulates. So we're looking for A1, number 7, right here. Again, pop it off. And when you snap it together, make sure that you can still move this lever right here, and that it gives a nice smooth movement so that his arm actually does articulate a little bit later on. Now we're looking for the chest plate, which is on A2, number 13. And since my next step is number 14, I'm also going to grab that one. Alright, so this is going to snap right onto the front of the chest. There's a little peg right here, which lines up with the peg on the back right there. And this one is a little tricky. You are going to have to hold this one on while you place the back. And there we have his abdomen. Alright, so now we're going to take this opportunity to place the last decals on. So this goes under on his belly, right here, on this smooth curve. This is what's going to keep kind of that seamless look between his body and his tail once we attach it. And this is a curved surface, so take your time. Don't try to rush through this. Alright, so you're going to want to line up. There's a little notch right on the sticker there. On the sticker up here. Barely able to see it, but that's going to fit right in this notch here. This corner. So I'm going to fit that right down, and pardon me for not facing it. And then I'm very carefully going to lay this down. So this is a curved surface, which is why there's a couple little notches. You're going to want to let the sticker bend, and do try not to rip it. It is pretty good on adhesive. So you are going to have a little bit of wrinkling, but that is fine, and in the end you won't really be able to see it. Alright, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. And again, it's fine for a little overlap. That's expected. You're not really going to be able to see this part. So long as you have it semi-neat, it doesn't really matter. Alright, so next part it's asking me for is from card A1. And it's asking me for number 3, which is this belly cover. So I'm going to pop it off. It's just going to fit. Oops. Snap right in. So next it's asking us to attach the head to the body. So there is a large peg right down here. And we're just going to snap it on. And make sure you don't push too hard. Give him a little bit of a wiggle, his head will settle in just fine. There is a little bit of movement in his head, a little bit of up and down, but it's mostly side to side. So the next part is going to be B2 or 13. As you can see, it's instructing me to attach the wires from the back of his head to his body. It was a little bit more difficult to get on, but you're going to want to make sure that the small one is the one going into the back of his head. Like that. And I know it's going to kind of sit a little loosely until you get the big one settled. And that one's not going to sit in all the way, which is fine. We're going to start on the legs, which are this card here, and this is what I was talking about. These couple of screws, it was a little rough pulling it out of the box, and they just kind of pulled off, which is fine. There's no damage to the legs or anything. So it's asking for B1 number 4 and B1 number 5. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull those off. Right? I'm just gonna snap these two together. Nothing fancy here. Just make sure that those sockets line up nice and tight. Now these ones you're going to want to be very precise with, because once you get these on, they are not going to come apart very easily. You will have to take a blade and go into the seam if you need to get these apart. Make sure you're reading those instructions on the step, otherwise you can easily put the wrong lower foot on the wrong shin, which I made that mistake the first time I was building it, and I ended up breaking this and having to do super glue surgery on it. So next it's going to ask me for B1 number 2 and 3, which are these guys right here. This one, again, please be careful with this, because this joint right here is extremely fragile. It is the most fragile joint on this character. And you'll notice that the pegs are a little oddly shaped. They're kind of going in at an angle. That is intentional. Do not try to bend them any other way. And be very gentle putting these together. Make sure you get the joint positioned correctly. Push it together. And the biggest tell to know whether you got it right or not is when pushed all the way forward, this joint makes a fairly smooth, flat transition. There's no weird bumps on it. And then it's going to ask us to put the toe cap on, which is just B1 number 1 on both of them. And there's one full foot. Pop it onto the character. Okay. Now it's going to ask us to do the exact same process with the other side. Again, it's a little tricky on the legs. This is one, especially if you're letting kids do it, I would suggest that you just put the legs together yourself if you're a parent. There we go. And after a while, they'll start to loosen up too. These joints will be a little bit stiff, but as you can see now, it's a couple little wiggles and it's fine. Next, we're moving on to B2, which is the arms. And again, just make sure you're not forcing anything where it's not going to go, and be attentive to the instructions. So I'm on step 15, which is B16, do number 16 and 17, which is one of the arm joints. It's going to tell me to snap these two together just like that. This creates that ball joint for the elbow. Alright, so now it is asking me for number 14, which is the elbow or shoulder joint, and number 15, which is also part of the shoulder joint. So this one we have to put together before we snap anything together. So make sure you line up the grooves here so everything moves nicely. There we go. And there's the elbow joint. And lastly, for this arm, it's going to be the hands. So these are 18 and 19. Straighten out the arm, just so you can get the right orientation. Clip, let it kind of rest on top of the little ball joint here for the wrist. And then we'll pop the back of the hand out. This one's going to require a little bit more kind of pushing and prodding to get things sitting right. But once you get it, it'll stay pretty solid. I'm going to just kind of rotate this until it fits correctly on the socket. Alright, and then it's going to be on to the next page, which is going to start me off with 22 and 23. And again, this is just mirroring the other side. And if you are really concerned about staying power, you are more than welcome to use super glue. This is just demonstrating that you don't need any extra tools. So it's very safe for kids to use and play with. And lastly, we have the tail. So it's going to ask me to put together the tip of the tail first, which are these two spurs right here. Nothing weird or tricky with this one, with the tail at all. Just snap the two parts together. I'm not being particularly gentle with anything here. I'm actually going fairly moderate. So snap the tail together, and that tail is now articulated, can move, can bend. And to finish him off, set the tail. There's a little seat right here that fits right over the space. Set it there, snap her in, and you're good. So now we can take a look at the articulated action. To articulate him, you just pull his tail. There we go. It's a little rough at first, just because of the stickers. And you can raise and lower his amp just by moving his tail. Alright, lastly, we're just gonna toss together the stand. This one's simple enough. Just be very careful with this clear acrylic because it does scratch very easily. There's the base. So you're going to want to make sure that the large end goes into the base here. And there's the seat. And just set them there and you're good to go. And that is how to build these guys. Alright guys, thanks for joining me while I put together the Mewtwo model kit. And as you can see, he is fully standing on his own. Pretty neat little display piece or toy for your kids. Durable pieces, very easy to put together, and very family-friendly project, especially if you pick up one of each.